Hey up and welcome to another episode of Last Cast. You join us today doing something a little bit different. We're on a mill pond today and it's a local venue to us just outside Halifax. It's a water that I know actually quite well, so I've got a good idea of how I'm going to approach it today. We're in mid-April and the weather's perfect for a bit of skimmer fishing. So what I'm going to do now is run you through the baits that we're going to use today. Initially you've got to consider that it's a deep venue, so the first thing you've got to look at is using a carrier to get your bait to the bottom. We've gone for a darkish ground bait mix today. It's fairly rich but very, very heavily over-wetted. As you can see, it binds together very easily. As I say, the depth plays a massive factor in the baits that you're going to be using. So that mix is made up of Silver X Roach, Sensus Black River. Obviously, again, a river mix is going to be a lot heavier and take a lot more water. So that's what you want to be looking to use on these deep venues. If it was, say, 8 foot deep, I'd probably look at using Sensus Lake. But because it's 15 foot deep, I'm going to use river. Into that, as you can see, bream fishing, you've got to have an array of baits. It's a crucial aspect to fishing these venues because you never know what they're going to want on the day. So starting from right to left, first of all, classic bream bait. We've got a few red worms just in there, and we might introduce a bit of those chopped up. But the one thing is that there's quite a lot of small roach in here, so might stay away from those. The next thing is maggots. Again, ideal hook bait, mix of red and whites. Usually 2 or 3 of them on a size 16 can do very well. Interesting thing here is pellets. Now these have only just come into the fore on this venue in the past few years, and if you can start catching on those, you can put together a frightening weight. So we've got some green 3 mils, and to fish over the top we've got some 6 mil red expanders, which should stand out nicely. Good contrast bait with the ground bait that we'll be feeding. Again, water's deep, it's fairly coloured, so you want to have a bait that will contrast and stand out to get those quicker bites. Next 2 things, we've got hemp and dead maggots, and then some corn as well. Again, we'll put a mixture of those in the ground bait. Initially my feed will be based around ground bait, a few micro pellets, a bit of dead maggot, some hemp, and just the very occasional grain of corn. Again, big baits, rich baits like corn, you don't want to feed too much of at this time of year because they're only just coming out of winter and starting to feed. Rig wise, what we're going to do is have 2 rigs set up. We've decided to fish at 10 metres today, as I say. I already know the venue fairly well, so I know roughly where the shelf is, and we'll show you plumbing up in a second. 2 rigs we've got. Again, skimmer fishing side, you really want to have 2 rigs, one lighter than the other, and especially if there's roach present, you can always change one of these to a roach rig. So the lightest rig, we've got a number 4 elastic at the top end, set pingy. Depth of water, again, you want to be able to set the hook nice and positive. I prefer to fish a lighter elastic set tighter than the heavier elastic set a bit slacker. I just think I can hit bites a lot quicker that way. The float on this one is a 1 gram. Again, fairly thick bristle. The tow can get up on these venues, as can the wind. So you want to have something that you can see all through the day. And this one's just a carp one by Drennan. Good pattern float. Carbon stem. Again, with awkward banks, a wire stem's more likely to tangle over as you're shipping out. So I prefer to have a carbon stem where I can. Moving down the rig, as you can see, we've got it on a winder because it's an extra 2 sections. But we've got an Olivet and 3 number 10 droppers on that, and that comes down on a 0.15 mainline to an 0.8 hook length with a size 20 hook, a silverfish match hook there. Good pattern hook for bream fishing because of its very square bend. You can fish a lot of different baits, and if you fish like a maggot pattern hook, you can only really fish maggot and worm effectively. Whereas with the square sort of wide gate bend on a silverfish match, you can get away with pretty much any bait you want. The second rig is just a stepped up version. 2 gram float, double 4 elastic, again 0.15 mainline. The thicker mainline just means shipping out is a lot easier. This one we've got a 2 gram bulk with an Olivet and a pair of 2 number 10 droppers set together. As we'll show when we're plumbing up, the idea behind that is that you can have those 2 number 10s just set off bottom, and they're a very, very positive bite indicator for skimmer fishing. Just, as I say, you set them about 1 inch off the deck, and as the bait is lifted by the skimmer, those 2 shot will pop up and the float will pop up, and you can read bites very, very easily. And it's also good for dragging line on the bottom as well. So there's a lot you can do with these different kind of rigs. So what we'll do now is get those plumbed up, get them inch perfect, and then we'll be able to start balling in and doing some fishing. Right, so these mill ponds, they're incredibly deep in most cases. Again, we're in the north of England, in the Pennines especially, and you've got a lot of steep-sided valleys, and a lot of these mill ponds are built with a dam wall end at one end, an inlet where they've blocked off a stream at the other, and they're very deep because of the steep sides of the valley. So obviously that has its inherent problems. It's not like a commercial. You're going to have to plumb up very carefully. And a crucial thing to try and judge is how the dam has been built in. On the one we're at the moment, it's very obvious that it's all walled in down the sides. So it's basically one shelf after another, and then you're going to get to the silt end. Where we are today, we're at the inlet end. Slightly warmer water, it's slightly shallower. And usually holds a good head of fish because of the food coming down. So what we're looking to do is find the deepest point, especially this time of year, just after the final bit where it's been built in. So that's where the bottom's going to start levelling off. Again, it's a similar kind of principle to fishing the near side shelf on a commercial, but instead you're fishing probably about 10 metres and looking for, as you can see today, probably 15 feet of depth. So as I say, plumbing up is crucial. So heavy plummets are the order of the day. But you do need to have a selection. So what we'll do initially is we'll plumb up with a heavy 30 gram standard plummet. But as I say, it's going to be, at the inlet area, it's going to be silty. So that's when one of these comes in. Silt plummet, again, much larger surface area. So after you've plumbed up and got it about right with this, then you're going to try and get it absolutely spot on with the silt plummet. And then what I'll do is I'll put on a AAA shot, and that's just going to negate any effects of debris, and that'll allow me to get a perfect reading of depth. As I say, with skimmer fishing, you want this last telltale shot, that's your bite indicator, just off the bottom. So it's important that you get that perfect. So what you can do with the little shot, as we'll show, is you can just nip it on exactly where you want on the hook length, so you can set the final dropper shot 1 inch, 2 inches off the bottom, or even if you want, put the AAA above it and have that set on the bottom to nail it down if there's quite a lot of tow. So as I say, we'll get plumbing up now and get the rigs inch perfect. It's just having a good plumb around. So I've decided the length that I want to fish. Again, I know this water fairly well, so I can judge exactly how far I want out to fish. But always start and just have a look for that near side ledge. Again, you don't want to be fishing right tight to it, because if the tow does drag your hook bait into it, you're going to get snagged. So as I can see there, it's about 3-4 inches shallower there. Just ship out another half joint, another inch or two deeper, and to the end of the joint there, and that's about perfect. So that's the distance I'll fish today, that's 10 metres. So we'll get the other rig done as well. And as I say, I've already had a rough plumb up and used the shot to get these rigs done. As I say, we're about ready to start fishing now. So we'll get the other rig plumbed up. As I say, that one's a bit more positive, with a couple of number 10 droppers right near the hook as the telltale. So that one we're going to have those just set about 1 inch off the deck. Right, so after plumbing up with a heavy silt plummet, we're now going to just make sure, with a positive rig like this, that these two dropper shot are just above the bottom. This is going to allow us to drag exactly the amount of line that we want to drag on the bottom, and also have those droppers set just off. So as I say, with skimmer fishing, often you're looking for lift bites, but you definitely need stability in the rig. So by just having those two droppers just off bottom, it gives us the best of both worlds. You get proper solid pull under bites, and you'll also be able to take lift bites, because it'll only have, what, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of line to pick up before the float will just lift and give us that positive indication. So as I say, using the little shot, twofold, it'll sit perfectly on the silt, and we can position it exactly where we want to get the float shotted and plumbed perfectly. So we'll get that done now. Obviously, rather than normal plummet, it does take a little bit longer for it to reach depth. Just going to lower that in dead steady. As you can see there, it's not pulling the float under. It's just got the bristle down pimpled. So that means that AAA shot there that we've got on for plumbing is just resting on the bottom. So that's perfect first time. Right, so if you're new to pole fishing, it's absolutely crucial that once you've plumbed up, that you mark that on your top kit. Now, with deep fishing like this, as you can see, we've got an extra 2 sections, so we're actually fishing a top 4. So you just want to have the hook in the bottom of the final section, ship back up to the pole, and just mark with either a marker pen, Tipex, or a piece of elastic. You can do that just to make sure you've got the depth set. And I just mark it just at the bottom of the bristle, like so. So I know if I get snagged up, lose a hook length, anything happens, or I hook a big fish and the float moves up the line, then I know that I can always check it and reference it against that marker of depth. So again, you do that with all your rigs, and then you're making sure that you know exactly what depth you're fishing at all the time, and you can always use it as a reference point. Right, so as you can see, I've just made up the initial feed. It's a good idea to keep the feed that you're going to bowl in initially separate from your actual the remainder of your feed, because then you can judge exactly how much is going into the peg. So as you can see, I've made up some good solid ground bait balls there, laced with plenty of dead maggot, the odd grain of corn, bit of hemp and a few micros in there. What I'm going to do is ball in 5 or 6 and then cup in 2 or 3. So what that creates is a nice area of a spread with a concentrated zone over which I'm going to put my floats. As you can see, I've got the pole set in the rests, with the cupping kit on the end. Again, I don't want to break a standard top kit, so I'll fish a cupping kit, and with the cup as well positioned upside down, it's buoyant, so if the ball does hit it, it'll pop back up and it won't break the pole. And it also acts as a good visual marker. So as I say, just going to pop those to one side, get lined up with my marker and just start balling in. Again, one thing you've got to be conscious of here is it's better to throw the ball short than it is too long. Obviously you can't really fish past them, so you want to just put them in on the near side if you can. Same, looking for a rough spread. So that's those done, so I'll just make a couple more up and cup those in now. Right, so after the balling in there, as I say, just going to cup in another 2 or 3, nice and accurate. In an ideal world I'd have been a bit more accurate with the balling in there, but as I've said, with bream fishing it doesn't really matter that much. As long as you're just getting good spread of bait, you'll be able to concentrate the shoal as you want with cupping the balls in like this. As always, just using the far bank marker, we're just going to cup in there. So it's awkward shipping back here because of the high banks, so you've just got to be extra careful when you're shipping out. I say preferably where I can, I'll ball in rather than shipping out, cupping in like this, just to make life that bit easier. That's 2, and we'll just put just one more in to make sure we've got that concentrated area of feed. So these balls of ground bait will probably take a good hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before the fish really settle on them. Be a good half hour before they break down fully anyway. So it's always a good idea in the interim time, especially if you're in a match, to have a couple of shallow rigs set up or an edge line that you can just fish for the interim time before you go over it. As I say, it's an important aspect to bream fishing, is just letting them settle over that feed. So you want to just allow a bit of time. You don't want to catch the initial first few fish that move over the feed. You want to let them settle, shoal up, and then they should be lined up and nice and easy to catch. That's a hybrid, that. Don't get many of them here. Get a good string of these together. Could be on for a big weight. Right, so it's been a couple of hours since we fed the ground bait line for the bream. As I said earlier, it's a good idea in that meantime to try and put a few fish in the net. So we've just been fishing shallow with some maggots, catching a few small roach silvers, the odd eyed as well. So as I say, giving it a couple of hours for it to settle. So now we're going to just have a quick look over it, double maggot on the hook, and as I say, we're starting on the lighter rig this time just to see what's down there. Say in a match scenario, if I wasn't getting bites after 15-20 minutes, I'd certainly look at going back to fishing the whip and just waiting, or fishing a shallow rig instead. Just going to lower that in now. So good thing is with having a rough spread of bait, I'm able to just search the peg a little bit and see if there's fish in various pockets. So if I was fishing over a spot that I'd put in the ground bait, you know, through a cupping kit and just over one little area, if I hooked one fish or I missed a couple of bites, then I'd spook the whole shoal. Whereas because I've got a spread of bait there, I can have a look around and see if there's the odd fish to pick off. Then have a quick look over where I cupped in those 3 balls to just see if they're actually concentrated over that, and that'll give me an idea of how densely packed the fish are over the area, if they're shoaled up or if there's just a few fish rooting about picking off the odd bit of ground bait. So those 3 number 10 droppers have just settled down nicely there. So I'm going to give it 30 seconds, a minute, then I'll lift it and move it about, just searching the peg a bit. So usually if the bream are there, they should show themselves fairly quickly because they are a shoal fish. You'll start getting indications, line bites. As I say, as a shoal fish, they can compete quite heavily for the feed. So you should start getting bites quite quickly. So there's no point wasting time sitting there for 20 minutes, half an hour looking for a bite when you can be putting a few fish in the net, fishing shallow. So just lift that up a bit. There's a bit of wind coming into the peg now. We are at the windward end of the lake as it turns out, so hopefully the bream should come with it. So to counteract that, I've got quite a decent length of line between the float and the connector. And if the wind does pick up even more, then I'll consider adding back shot to the rig, just to help stabilise it that bit more. Again, when you're bream fishing, you really want to have a static bait as best you can. So that's why we've got a few inches of line on the bottom. So there's no indications as yet. Not even any roach bites. So that tells me that there's probably the odd bream down there. Says they'll usually bully the roach out. So I'm just lifting it up. I'll bring it a bit nearer to me, where a couple of the balls went. That was. We're into our first fish of the session on the ground bait. Let it settle for a good 2 or 3 hours and just gone in on double mag, and it feels like a small skimmer. Not sure whether his foul hooked or just rolled over the line. I think he's just twisted himself up. Yeah, he is fairly hooked. Hook's just dropped out in the net. Nice little skimmer to start there. So hopefully there's a few more down there. It's quite common on this venue, as with many, that initially you'll get the smaller skimmers moving over that ground bait first, and then they'll be followed by the larger bream. Obviously you'll catch these smaller skimmers on the lighter rig, especially fishing the smaller baits as we are today with just a couple of maggots on the hook. And as I say, as the day progresses, hopefully the larger bream will move in, and then you can just respond by upping the feed and upping your hook size. With this rig, might even go up to size 18, maybe a 16 hook, and on the other we've also got some size 14 hooks tied up, so those would be ideal for double corn or a worm and a maggot. As I say, it's important when you're fishing for skimmers and bream that you look to vary the baits and work out what you can catch on the day the quickest. Once again, just lowering that in. So because I've fed the ground bait in sort of a line, I'm able to now pick these fish off either close to me or add another section and chase them a bit further out. So we're just starting around the shorter side of the ground bait feed, and that's where I've picked off that skimmer. Oh, go on. That's a lift bite. And we're into another skimmer, it feels like here. Nice confident lift there on the float. It was a bit bigger than the last. It's about the same size actually. So it just had a switch to a worm hook bait. So we had a couple of little knocks off roach as the bait was falling. That's a much smaller skimmer actually. But still, it's a good indication that the bream are down there somewhere. Oh. I've just hooked a good fish down the edge here. So just fishing down the edge and shallow when there's a few quiet spells over the ground bait line. Just fed it with a bit of chopped maggot. Feels like a good perch this. And it is. Lovely fish. Fantastic bonus fish to catch that. Lovely fat fish. Just pop him in the net. So it's important to just have these backup lines just to keep ticking over. I've had a few small perch earlier as well, but that's been the best fish off that line so far. So periodically just going to keep having a look over the ground bait line until the fish really have settled. Right, as you can tell, the temperature's taken a turn for the worse, to be honest, and it's given the fishing a bit of a knock on the head, but it has certainly put the fish down in the water. So I've had to revert to the lighter rig again, just to maximise the chance of getting bites. We've waited a while for this one and it's just buried. I say this is the issue with fishing this time of year, is the weather can be very changeable and temperamental. So you've just got to be aware of that. We've had a very quiet spell during the mid part of the day where the temperatures have been up. Then suddenly we've got a load of cloud cover and the wind's picked up again and it's suddenly dropped colder. Which I think certainly affected the fishing a bit. So just ease this one into the net. Another good sized fish though. So in the meantime, while the weather's been up and down a bit, we've put a couple of fish in the net fishing down the edge with chopped maggot and worm, and a couple of fish shallow as well. So as I say, it's important to keep ticking over just according to the weather. This one's actually got a few spawning tubercles on his nose. Another lovely fish though. And we're into another bream here. Same again, this feels like a better fish, this one actually. It's hanging down there well. About 5-10 minutes after the last one, again on the light rig. Not really had the confidence really to go on the heavier rig just yet. As I say, with this drop in the temperatures, it does require that little bit more finesse. Same again though, double maggot. So I haven't really had a chance to step up to the heavier kit and use bigger baits as yet, because it has been so cold. So just ease them up to the top now. So we've got to be very careful, because you can lose them up there. So just nod the heads. It's a good fish though, this one. Really is fighting well. And plenty of that number 4 elastic out, just to cushion that, the nod of the fish against that size 20 hook, just keeping it in place. So he really doesn't want to get his head up this one. Just feel like a good fish. Just got to take it really careful. Again, bream don't usually fight, but you've just got to be aware they are a very heavy fish. And one nod of the head, and they can occasionally snap the hook length. Getting a few spatterings of rain now. Just seeing below the surface in this nice clear water. Lovely colour, these bream. Yeah, he's just wrapped himself in the line, so I'm struggling to get his head up. Again, they can tend to do it in this deeper water. This is coming in sideways. Just about reach him. There we go. Bigger fish this time. The hook's dropped out in the net. Just try and sort this out and then hold him up for camera. Yeah, the rain's just starting now. And as you can probably tell with the size of these fish, you don't need many to build a good weight on these natural venues. It's another good couple of pound there. And get him in the keep net. Oh, and we're into another bream here. It's taken quite a while for this bite. And as I say, this is just on the heavier rig as the wind's picked up and made presentation a little bit more difficult. Just been fishing with 3 maggots, as I say. I haven't had really a chance to try any bigger baits like corn or pellet, just for the fact that the weather's been so poor towards the back end of the session. Nice positive bite though, it's a good fish. So that double 4 elastic, just a bit stronger than single 4. So I can just get him in that little bit quicker. Again, still perfect elastic for bream and skimmer fishing. Is in the net there. Nice fish, this one. It's perfectly hooked. Right in the top lip there. And another lovely fish. Possibly the biggest one of the day, that one. I've just hooked into a bream there. Tiny little lift on the float. This is on the heavier rig. As I say, the conditions have got a bit worse. So I've had to put a bit of line on the bottom. So the fishing's really slowed up now as the temperature's really dropped. Made life a lot more difficult. So we may well call this one the last fish of the session. So just turn him. And we've got him in the net. Another nice skimmer, quite a bit smaller than the previous few, but still a nice fish nonetheless. So we'll call this one the last fish of the session and we'll have a look at what we've caught. Just nicked the hook out of his bottom lip there. So your hands are quite cold with the temperatures dropping. There we go, he's in the keep net. So we'll now have a look at what we've caught today. Alright, so that's our final net there that we've finished up with. Around 20 pound of fish there. Decent amount of bream in there as well. It's been one of those days today where the fish have been hard to catch, to be honest, and I think that's been due to the changeable weather conditions and the time of year. We've caught the bream over ground bait. We've also caught plenty of small roach and other silverfish, including the odd eyed like that. and a couple of decent perch as well. Just fishing down the edge on maggots to one side and on the other side with a few micro pellets, and also caught a few fish shallow. As I say, switching between the ground bait line and those shallow lines, managed to keep fish coming all day and put together a nice net, about, as I say, about 20 pounder silvers on quite a tough day. So hopefully this is giving you an idea of how to approach these mill ponds. Have a go at them if you've got any near to you, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll hopefully catch you on the next one.